Today we're excited to welcome Felecia Boone, who is a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant for Hennepin County to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, and thanks for being here on a
Yeah.
early morning, and you have some coffee. And
I do.
Yeah, good.
And the sun is shining, so that makes it all good.
And it's warm in the forecast, so.
Also that.
Good. Well, thanks for being with us.
Yes.
And we always like to start by giving our listeners a little background into
Okay.
who we're talking to.
All right.
So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and education
Okay.
and what you're doing today.
Sure. So, born and raised in South Minneapolis and product of Lutheran schools, kindergarten through college. And so that's been interesting. And because of that elementary and high school education being in a smaller setting, I did not want to go to the U. The U seemed really big and scary, and I wanted something small and just a little more comfortable for me. So, Wartburg. I know.
I know. It's okay.
Yeah, okay.
We got it out of the way.
All right, we got that over that hurdle. Wartburg was one of the schools that I visited, and the only school I applied to, so I don't know what I would have done if I had been rejected.
No.
But it's been quite the formation for me. Like many young adults, I stepped away from the church after college and was pretty much done. And then there were some sneaky folks who reeled me back in. They lured me, Dietrich, with asking me if I would co-chaperone a youth gathering to New Orleans. And I had visions of Bourbon Street after I tucked the little kids in bed. And I didn't read the fine print that said the curfew applied to chaperones too.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And as you said, I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant at Hennepin County under our new line of business called disparities reduction, where we are looking at ways internally and externally in the community to reduce disparities for Hennepin County residents.
Cool. And so you've been doing that for how long now?
I have been in this role 3 years,
Okay.
I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you've had a myriad of experiences before that, right?
Yes. So I was in HR, human resources in learning and development.
Okay.
And one of the programs I ran was successful supervision for new supervisors at Hennepin County. So it was an 8-week session class that they had to go through and learn a variety of topics around how to be a good supervisor. Prior to that, I worked for Hennepin County's health plan, HMO, for persons on Medicare and Medicaid. And I started my career in human services as a financial worker. So, yeah.
So you've been in the public sector for a while.
For a while. And I did step away for 5 years, and I worked at the state in the Attorney General's office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So you've been a public servant.
I have.
So tell us a little bit about, I want to talk about your work that you do.
Okay.
And, but tell us a little bit about what you're doing and your current role
Okay.
at the county.
Sure. So in my current role, diversity, equity, and inclusion, our role is to build capacity in the staff. So we do a little bit of external work in the community, working with other jurisdictions, but much of our work is getting our workforce up to speed on what diversity, equity, and inclusion is now and what that means in our charge to serve residents with respect. So we do a lot of coursework, helping people do that. So last year, county administration required that all staff take a 4-hour course called Advancing Racial Equity, and any new employee coming in has to take that as well. And it's all about looking at the role of government and race and policies that have had a negative impact on communities of color. And then what's our role in government to right those things. And so this year we're rolling out how to use a racial equity impact tool in our decision making all across the county. And so leaders are going to be trained in that. So we're starting with them because they make decisions, budget decisions, policy decisions, program decisions, so that they can start to use this tool, which is one of many, but use this tool in their decision making so that they are looking more broadly at how their decision making may have racial implications in the community, and what can we do to think differently about that so the outcomes are better for everybody in Hennepin County. And then I also am the program administrator for our diversity leadership mentoring program, which is pairing our directors and assistant county administrators with leaders of color in the organization to build that relationship so that we have more folks in the pipeline to senior leadership.
Right, because that's important. And a lot of times I feel like especially in local municipalities, things can just, it is what it is, and it's been this way for 100 years, and why would, change takes a long time.
Absolutely.
That's one thing I was curious about. In private organizations, change can happen pretty fast because you don't have a lot of things getting in your way, bureaucracy, all that kind of stuff. How is it working with working in an organization that it might take a little longer? Can you speak to, does it take a little, have you noticed that? Is it something that takes a while to change?
Yes. So things are slow until they aren't, till we've decided that we're, and then it can move pretty fast. But getting to this point of even requiring a diversity course of all employees, an equity course, I should say, for all employees, I mean, that's been about a 14-year journey to get to that point, right? And so when it first started, my director was the impetus behind that when she was in learning and development, and kind of how folks talk about sneaking vegetables to kids. It was kind of like that. So she asked and was told no, and then she just kind of started piloting things, and then the buzz got pretty big, and people were enjoying those classes, and so that's kind of how it started. But it's been slow, and it takes, and we're an organization that's built on relationship.
Right.
So some of it is who you know, and what are your relationships with people to be able to open those doors, and she was able to do that. It took time, but
yeah. And when you're now, it's been established for a while now, and what kind of work do you do? I mean, I'm just imagining a lot of work happens over here at the county building, but how much work are you doing in the more rural areas of the county, and what does that work look like?
And because Hennepin is the largest county in the state, and I do believe we are the only county that is urban, suburban, exurban, and rural, right? And so we don't so much directly touch the resident, but our role is to work with those employees that do. So there are 4 of us that are trainers in our area, and we are assigned 2 lines of business. So I'm assigned to, I have county administration, which is, like 6 departments, public works. So that's the people who do our roads and bridges, and the engineers and the snowplow drivers. And what's my other one? Public works and I'm forgetting. But
okay, it might come back to you.
It'll come back. Operations.
Okay.
Which is, like 8 departments are under that. So that's, our budget and finance people. So that's where we have impact. Some of also our impact is working with other jurisdictions. So because of the coursework we've done, when other county administrators get together, they've asked, and we've said yes. So we've gone to Stearns County, and done some diversity, equity, and inclusion coursework with their staff.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what does it look like for other counties? Are other counties doing similar work?
Right. We've done courses with Minneapolis Public Schools and their administration on conducting non-bias interviews. All right. So that's how it works. We've worked with the city of Richfield and their leadership with some of the courses that we offer internally to our staff.
Okay.
So.
And I think it's okay. So now we kind of have a landscape of what you do at the county, and I want to talk about the importance of this work, because so often people I don't want to say write it off, but that is what happens. You know, it's written off as, we don't have time for that. That doesn't happen here.
Right.
We're
Or
not.
it's not government's role to do this.
Right, right. So talk a little bit about why is this so important? Why should organizations, especially government, but also, we might have people that are in the private sector listening.
Right.
Why is it important to do this work?
One, it's the right thing to do.
Right.
There's a moral imperative here to right these wrongs. And the landscape, the demographic landscape is changing. And you cannot like me all you want.
Right.
Based on my gender, my race, whatever. You cannot like me. That is not a requirement that you like me. But what you don't get to do is keep me from living my best life. Right? There's no reason I shouldn't have access to adequate housing, adequate health care, adequate food, access to transportation. And so that's why it's important. And if it'll be interesting to see what the census this year tells us, right? Because the projections are that by 2042, the majority of people ages, I believe, like 24 to 35 are going to be people of color. And by 52, something like that, the majority of all Americans are going to be people of color. And if we don't have folks who are able to have adequate income to support our tax base, starting small businesses, these are all reasons that it's important. We need more people on this side of the table supporting than on this side of the table receiving.
Right.
Because they haven't had adequate education or access to things like that.
Yeah, and to me, it seems like a duh.
Right.
Why is it so difficult in so many environments? And I know, racism is runs rampant, right? But besides that, what's
my personal feeling is that I think people are operating out of it's a zero-sum game. If we do this for you, then I'm losing something. And so they're working out of a scarcity mindset. And I personally believe there's enough for everybody. And I don't want your stuff. What I want is access to get my own stuff. My guess is we probably don't want the same things, right?
Right.
But I do want to be healthy and have my family be healthy and not have to worry. So if for no other reason than financial, and I'm okay with that if that's what carries people along. I do want people's hearts to be changed and their minds to be changed. But if for no other reason than financial, I'm okay with that if that gets them to move out of the way and not be gatekeepers.
Right.
And say, well, this is all you get. Right. But I think it's a mind shift to nobody's taking anything from you and that there's enough for everybody.
And I think a lot of that comes from people needing to be open to listening. People don't listen,
Yeah.
If people could have a conversation that's, like this, that,
Right.
And it may be someone that's on an opposing side, right?
Right.
But you just have to be able to listen. And so much of our society doesn't know how to listen. It's all, you have to listen to me. I'm just going to talk at you,
Right. And nobody wants to hear. So this is what we tell people in class a lot is what you're listening for is the commonality. We still may not agree, but where can we find a common thing that will get us to keep having a conversation?
Right.
Right. And it's not about changing your mind necessarily, but can we have a conversation so we can understand each other better and not yell at each other and just whoever is yelling the loudest gets heard.
Right.
Right.
It is about a conversation. So I'm curious, because you do a lot of this work day in and day out, and it can be tiring, I'm sure. But what are some positive experiences that you have in your day-to-day work?
You can tell when a seed's been planted and somebody who's been resistant, and you see it the minute they walk into the classroom, but by the time they leave, they're at least open to what was presented and may come back to you and ask for resources. We give folks lots of resources, but you can tell when someone is starting to think a little bit differently. They may not have bought in totally, but they're having an aha moment, and that's what makes it worth it.
And I think, you just said something about resources, and I think that, playing off this positive experience you have when someone's finally like, okay, I'm open to this now. They walk into the room closed-minded and they leave, and now they ask you for more resources. What does that look like? So you're not just doing this. You don't just walk into your classroom, you're done with your 4-week training or whatever it is, and now you never have to talk about it again. What kind of resources does the county provide to these employees that are trying to continually learn and grow and develop?
So our staff, we are a resource. We do consult as well. So it could be someone just wants to sit and talk through an issue. We will do that. We have our intranet SharePoint site. We have SharePoint. Yes, and we're going through a big conversion, and it's got everybody all nervous.
Okay.
Or upgrade or whatever they're doing. We have book lists. We have websites. We provide folks conversations that they can do on their own with their teams. So we're also providing resources to leadership. So we have a series of TED Talks that we've created conversations around that are just out and available. People can grab those and share those with their teams. We have a lot of conversations that leaders can go out and grab and facilitate themselves. Many of them are nervous, and so they're like, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I'm if someone asks me a hard question, I don't know how to answer it. So we will come in and do those for them and their teams as well.
That's really cool. And are any of these resources available to Hennepin County?
The general public on the public facing site? That's a very good question.
Because I feel like, not that it's the county's responsibility to provide that, but it could be another resource for people that are interested in learning more about that kind of stuff.
Now that I think about it, our libraries do put out lists of things. And so if people are aware of the library system, that is a place that has resources listed on the public site as well.
All right, and because I know you personally, I want to know a little bit about how you see this work extending outside the walls of Hennepin County.
Absolutely.
Because I know you do a lot of that, and we are wrapping up here. But I do want to see. I love whenever you can take what you do in a job and apply it to volunteer or community service or whatever faith-based work. So tell us a little bit about what you do outside of work.
Yeah, so outside of work, I'm the vice president of the Minneapolis Area Synod of the ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. And I actually just ran our executive council and program staff through a racial equity toolkit and how to apply that in the decisions that we're making at the Synod level. Important. Absolutely. I'm the chair of the Crossroads Community Organization, which is Calvary's 501c3 community arm, and we are, as you know, as we discuss our financial situation at Calvary and our buildings and all of that stuff, is how do we, yes, be fiscally responsible, but being in the community, how do we do that with an equity lens as well? So that's some of the places where that comes into play outside of work.
And it is, this could be a whole nother conversation, but it is, you mentioned the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America and how there's a lot of need for these conversations to be happening. And a lot of other faith-based organizations and non-faith-based organizations are having these conversations, and it's really important.
It is. It's super important. And again, it's another place where we've always done it this way. Have we?
Right.
I don't think first century Christians would recognize some of the things that we've decided are rules.
Right.
That really have nothing to do with following Christ and the expectation of what we're to be.
Right.
So
I think it's really important, all this work outside of the work that we do in our corporate structures or in our municipal structures, that we take the work that we do and bring it outside too. I think that's really important. Tell us a little bit about what you like to do for fun. Hobbies,
read, color. I like to color. I do like to cook, PBS, I love PBS. Saturday morning, that's the first thing I do. I turn on the cooking shows on Saturday. Hmm. And I love the, like all the mysteries and stuff on PBS. My sister jokes because I've gotten Alex hooked on some of the, like Father Brown. She's like, you have this child watching. I'm like, it's great.
That's good for him.
I know.
Well, good. Well, thanks for talking with us, and thanks
for
for the
having
work
me.
that you're doing,
You're
and
welcome.
encouraging people to embrace this. It's difficult, and
It is.
and as a privileged white person, it's important that we. It makes me uncomfortable, but it is something that it's okay.
And everybody has a racial history.
Yep.
Everybody, even
Yep.
white people.
Yep, and that's
Yeah.
that's the beauty of this conversation that needs to be had. And so, thanks for talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
So we like to play a little bit of trivia to close out our
All right.
episode.
Do I win something if I get them right?
Well,
This
for
lovely
every
cup of coffee.
yeah, you have a cup of coffee. But for every one you get right, we make a donation to House of Charity.
Oh, cool.
Which, are you familiar with them? So yeah, so for those that don't know, it's an organization that's close to Troust, and they help people that are experiencing homelessness achieve independence.
Yeah.
They also run a food a food kitchen, so they serve hot meals.
Yeah.
Troust actually served there
Oh, really?
earlier, yeah.
Okay.
And so it's a great organization. So
They are.
you're fighting for money to go to House of Charity, which
Okay.
no pressure. All right, so are you ready for this?
I think
now,
so.
you used to work in this building
I did.
at Hennepin Health.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So
And
I
we
thought
used to
that.
go over to House of Charity
Okay.
in the food kitchen, and we'd set up and talk to people about healthcare.
Okay, cool. Well, number one, here we go. In what year did the grain exchange cease active trading on the historic trading floor?
And I worked here then. It was 2000 and... Was it 10? 12?
Minus 2?
2008?
Yeah, 2008.
Okay.
It was, don't quote me on the exact date, but I want to say it was December 12th, 2008.
Okay.
That was the last day.
All right.
And the last final numbers are
Are
still
still
up,
on the
though.
board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Mm-hmm.
All right. We'll give that one to you.
Okay.
Number 2. There are 14 Minnesota counties that make up the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area. Can you name at least 5 of them? But we are only looking for the ones in Minnesota, not Wisconsin.
Okay.
And if you name more than 5, that's bonus points. But
Dakota?
Yeah.
Washington?
Yep.
Okay, so Dakota,
And they can be the
Washington,
urban ones, too.
Hennepin, Ramsey. I'm trying to see the map.
I'm thinking of one that shares a school district.
Anoka?
Yep. So there you got 5.
All right.
But the ones I think of are, let's see, yeah. You said of those, Anoka, Dakota, Hennepin, Ramsey, Washington, Carver,
Yes.
Scott, like
yes.
Northfield.
I was trying to think because I know through the medical examiner's office we combined some counties.
Okay.
And so I was trying to think of, and Scott and Carver.
Yeah. There's so many. There's
There-
14.
Right.
I was like,
I know,
14?
yeah.
There's actually 16. Because you have Hudson, Wisconsin, and then you have some
Right.
other Wisconsin areas that are considered
part of
metro, like
the-
Chisago Lakes and then over the border.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is.
All right. You got that one.
Thank you.
Number 3. Now, this one you don't have to hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
How many people visited the state fair in 2019? I'm just looking for the closest 100,000. So
And it was a record, I believe.
Like let's say if it was actually 1.5, if you said 1.4 or 1.6,
Okay.
They did 2 million in 2018.
Okay. And I believe this
And
was
they
a
did hit a
record
record,
year.
yep.
So was it 2.8?
It's 2.2.
Oh, okay.
I know. But that's still impressive.
That is because I don't do the Great Minnesota Get Together.
You don't go.
No.
No.
It's too many people.
It is a lot of people. Although I went this year. I go every year.
You do.
I do.
Oh.
I went this year and it rained right before I went on a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And then it was cool. Like it brought a cool front in and there was no
Nice.
one there.
Oh,
And it
see?
was like, oh.
That's great.
It was great. And then people started showing up, and I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yep.
The Great Minnesota Get Together, though, it is fun, but if you don't,
It
if you
is.
don't like a lot of people,
It's because people are not courteous.
it does bring out a lot of, a plethora of God's creation. We're all there.
It does.
We're all there. It's okay.
And the people who don't seem to know how to say excuse me when they run their stroller up the back of your leg. I can't do it.
Well, 2.2 million people apparently did. So
I know.
What?
Bless them.
Got to go get those Martha cookies. Sweet Martha's cookies.
I will make my own.
Okay. Oh boy, I hit a sore spot.
I am resistant. I am.
Well, thanks so much again for being with us today.
Thank you.
And
it was fun.
yeah, great time. Thanks.
Thanks.